Okay, we're in part 2, so let's find out what happens with TJ and his new friends while they're at the revival. He just asks, "Hey, Cast Girl, how are you doing?" I slapped his hand away. "Don't you come messing with me, TJ," I warned. Again he laughed, then said soberly, "Well, this is a fine how do you do. I come all the way over here to introduce my friends RW and Melvin to y'all, and y'all acting like y'all got no manners at all." "Yeah, ol' RW and Melvin," he said, rolling to the Simpsons names slowly off his tongue to bring our attention that he had not bothered to place a Mr. before either. "They've been mighty fine friends to me, better than any of y'all. Look, see here, what they give me?" He tugged at his suit coat. "Pretty nice stuff, eh? Everything I want they give me because they really likes me. I'm their best friend." He turned to the Simpsons. "Ain't that right, RW Melvin?" Melvin nodded, a condescending smirk on his face, which was lost on TJ. "Anything. Just anything at all I want. They'll get it from me, including—" He hesitated as if he was unsure whether or not he was going too far, then plunged on, "including that pearl-handled pistol in Barnett's Mercantile." RW stepped forward and slapped a reassuring hand on TJ's shoulder. "That's right, TJ. You name it and you've got it." TJ grinned widely. Stacy turned away in disgust. "Come on," he said. "Service is about to start." "Hey, what's the matter with y'all?" TJ yelled as the group turned en masse and headed for the church. I glanced back at him. Was he really such a fool? "All right, TJ," said Melvin as we walked away. "We come down here like you asked. Now you come into Strawberry with us just like you promised." It didn't even make no difference," muttered TJ. "What?" said RW. "You coming, ain't you? You still want that pearl-handled pistol, don't you?" "Yeah, but—" "Then come on," he ordered, turning with Melvin and heading for the pickup. But TJ did not follow immediately. He remained standing in the middle of the compound, his face puzzled and undecided. I had never seen him look more desolately alone, and for a fleeting second, I almost felt sorry for him. Okay, so here we have her literally saying that she feels sorry for him. So as we analyze the situation, we can kind of start to see why. So she says that he looks desolately alone. And if you were to look up that word, desolately means, so it doesn't have that word, it says desolate. It means deserted, empty. So he's he looks alone and empty. But why does he feel empty? And we know that it's because she's asking him, is he really that big of a fool? Why does she think he's a fool? Because as we kind of heard back from Jeremy, are RW and Melvin really friends? When we see, not really, he's looking at him in a condescending smirk. So if you're condescending, that means you look down on somebody. So it's kind of like TJ doesn't realize that they're really looking down on him. So that's important. And here we see, they tell him, okay, we came here like you wanted us to, but now you have to go to Strawberry like you promised you would. And then they even say, don't you want that pearl-handled pistol? So it's they're almost throwing it in his face. So that can't be good. Let's keep going. When I reached the church steps, I looked back again. TJ was still there, an indistinct blur blending into the gathering dusk, and I began to think that perhaps he would not go with the Simpsons. But then the rude squawk of the truck's horn blasted the quiet evening, and TJ turned his back on us and fled across the field. Roll of thunder, hear my cry, over the water, by and by. Old man coming down the line, whip in hand to beat me down, but I ain't gonna let him turn me round. Okay, so we have the beginning of chapter 11 that starts with this poem, A Roll of Thunder. We can even ask, coming back to it, what is the significance of this poem? So we'll come back to this. The night whispered of distant thunder. It was muggy, hot, a miserable night for sleeping. Twice I had awakened hoping that it was time to be up, but each time the night had been total blackness with no hint of a graying dawn. On the front porch, Mr. Morrison sat singing soft and low into the long night, chanting to the approaching thunder. He had been there since the house had darkened after church, watching and waiting, as he had done every night since Papa had been injured. No one had ever explained why he watched and waited, but I knew. It had to do with the Wallaces. So we were talking about Mr. Hammer's character, and here we have a glimpse of Mr. Morrison's character, the fact that every night he's there in total darkness, and he is just keeping watch, right? And why is he keeping watch? Well, Cassie's old enough to know that it has something to do with the Wallaces. Let's keep going. Mr. Morrison's song faded, and I guess he was on his way to the rear of the house. He would stay there for a while, walking on cat's feet through the quiet yard, then eventually return to the front porch again. Unable to sleep, I resigned myself to await his return by counting states. Miss Crocker had had a big thing about states, and I sometimes found that if I pretended that she was naming them off, I could fall asleep. I decided to count the states geographically rather than alphabetically. That was more of a challenge. I had gotten as far as the Dakotas when my silent recitation was disturbed by a tapping on the porch. I lay very still. Mr. Morrison never makes sounds like that. There it was again. Cautiously I climbed from bed, careful not to awaken Big Ma, who was still snoring soundly, and crept to the door. I pressed my ear against the door and listened, then slipped the latch furiously and darted outside. "Boy, what you doing here?" I hissed. "Hey, Cassie, would you keep it down?" whispered TJ, invisible in the darkness. Then he tapped lightly on the boy's door again, calling softly, "Hey, Stacy, come on, wake up, will ya? Let me in." The door swung open, and TJ slipped inside. I pulled my own door closed and followed him. "I'm in trouble, Stacy," he said. I'm really in trouble." "That ain't nothing new," I remarked. "What you coming here for?" whispered Stacy icily. "Go get R.W. Melvin to get you out of it." In the darkness, there was a low sob, and TJ, hardly sounding like TJ, mumbled, "They're the ones that got me in it. Where's the bed? I gotta sit down." In the darkness, he groped for the bed, his feet dragging as if he could hardly lift them. "I ain't no bed," I exclaimed as his hands fell on me. There was a deep sigh. Stacy clicked on the flashlight, and TJ found the bed, sitting down slowly and holding his stomach as if he were hurt. "What's the matter?" Stacy asked, his voice weary. "R.W. and Melvin," whispered TJ. "They hurt me bad." He looked up, expecting sympathy, but our faces, grim behind the light Stacy held, showed no compassion. TJ's eyes dimmed. Then, undoing the buttons to his shirt, he pulled his shirt open and stared down at his stomach. I grimaced and shook my head at the sight. "Lord, TJ!" Stacy exclaimed in a whisper. "What happened?" TJ did not answer at first, staring in horror at the deep blue-black swelling in his stomach and chest. "I think something's busted," he gasped finally. "I heard something awful." "Why'd they do it?" asked Stacy. TJ looked up into the bright light. "Help me, Stacy. Help me get home. I can't make it by myself." "Tell me, how come they did this to you?" Cause I said I was going to tell what happened." Stacy and I looked at each other, then leaned closer to TJ. "Tell what?" we asked. TJ gulped and leaned over, his head between his legs. I'm sick, Stacy. I gotta get home for my daddy wake up. He say I stay away from that house one more night. He gonna put me out. And he mean it, too. He put me out. I got no place to go. You gotta help me." "Tell us what happened." TJ began to cry. "But they said they'd do worse than this if I ever told." "Well, I ain't about to go nowhere unless I know what happened," said TJ with finality. TJ searched Stacy's face in the rim of a ghostly light cast by the flashlight. Then he told his story. After he and the Simses left Great Faith, they went directly into Strawberry to get the pearl-handled pistol. But when they arrived, the mercantile was already closed. The Simses said that there was no sense in coming back for the pistol. They would simply go in and take it. TJ was frightened at the thought, but the Simses assured him that there was no danger. If they were caught, they would simply say that they needed the pistol that night, but intended to pay for it on Monday. In the storage room at the back of the store was a small open window through which a child or a person as thin as TJ could wiggle. After waiting almost an hour after the lights had gone out in the Barnett's living quarters on the second floor, TJ slipped through the window and opened the door and the Simses entered, their faces masked with stockings and their hands gloved. TJ, now afraid that they had something else in mind, wanted to leave without the pistol, but RW had insisted that if he have it, RW broke the lock of the gun case with an axe and gave TJ the much longed for gun. Then RW and Melvin went over to the wall cabinet and tried to break off the brass lock. After several unsuccessful minutes, RW swung the axe sharply against the lock and it gave. But as Melvin reached for the metal box inside, Mr. Barnett appeared on the stairs, a flashlight in his hands, his wife behind him. For a long moment, no one moved or said a word as Mr. Barnett shone the light directly on TJ, then on RW and Melvin, their faces darkened by the stockings. But when Mr. Barnett saw the cabinet lock busted, he flew into frenzied action, hopping madly down the stairs and trying to grab the metal box from Melvin. They struggled, with Mr. Barnett getting the better of Melvin, until RW whopped Mr. Barnett solidly on the head from behind with the flat of the axe, and Mr. Barnett slumped into a heap upon the floor as if dead. When Mrs. Barnett saw her husband fall, she dashed across the room and flailed into RW, crying, "You niggers done killed Jim Lee! You done killed him!" RW, trying to escape her grasp, slapped at her, and she fell back, hitting her head against one of the stoves, and did not move. And guess what? That is our stopping place. So it's a very intense scene, but we will continue reading this tomorrow. And we will, for now, just answer our question, which is, why does Cassie feel sorry for him? I'm going to choose this quote. And as you know, you can choose whichever quote you want. In the text. Okay, so we have the this means. So you can answer this in different ways, but we know that this means that Cassie realizes how alone TJ really is, right? This shows that Cassie feels sorry for TJ because, so we know that she feels sorry for him. Why? Well, we know that she understands that RW and Melvin are not good friends. They're just using him, and in a way that maybe she thinks that TJ knows this too, but he has no one else to turn to at this point. Okay, so that is our reading for today. We did leave off in a very intense place, so we will see what happens with TJ tomorrow, and we will answer the next question.